Good morning. Good to see everybody here this morning. I'd like to call the November 18th, 2021 meeting of the Vigo County Capital Improvement Board to order. Mr. Bramble, will you call the roll, please?
Terry Conley.
Present.
Emily Morris.
Here.
Dave Patterson.
Here.
Duke Bennett.
Here.
John Marvel.
Here.
Chris Schweitzer.
Here.
And Steve Witt.
Are there any additions or revisions to today's agenda? Hearing none, has everyone had the opportunity to look over the minutes from the meeting of October the 20th, 2021? If so,
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
did you second this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So moved. Under old business, 5.1 is an update on the construction progress with Brian Koistra of Garmong Construction Services. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. Good to see everyone. I'll be presenting an update on construction through November of this year. We'll start with the budget. The current GMP amount stands at $27,075,034. That reflects a change or an increase of $78,175 from our previous month, which you'll remember was a result of adding cameras throughout the parking garage. So no other changes since the change order last month. Schedule, project continues to be ahead of schedule. You'll remember original substantial completion date was April 27th. We are on schedule to turn the building over March 3rd, or rather March 1st, and really see no obstacles in the way of that. One item on design, I'm sure Todd will touch on this a little bit, but I sensed a little bit of a surprise last month as it related to the museum. So just an update from our perspective, no plans have been received for any work in the museum for pouring the concrete slab or any of that. So all that work is still kind of in the planning phase.
I think we might have an update from
Okay.
Todd when it gets to Todd.
Not to steal your thunder, but just want everybody to know where I stand on it.
Okay.
Recent progress, there's been an abundance of progress. I'll highlight a few of those areas for you. Ceramic tile in the restrooms, both floor and wall tile is complete. The kitchen flooring, it's an epoxy floor. It is complete in anticipation of kitchen equipment showing up the first week of December. Ceiling grid throughout the building is complete. Wood paneling within the ballroom is complete. Within the pre-function hallway is complete. And now that work is taking place in the main corridor or the spine. And it's probably a third of the way done. Along with the wood paneling, there's fabric panels. You'll see some photos of those. Those are being installed as well. Terrazzo flooring, all of it is now laid. It's a multiple step process, so they lay it kind of like concrete, then they come through and grind it again, polish it, and they're in that grinding phase of the terrazzo floor right now. Toilet partitions are all in. Plumbing fixtures, majority of those are in, still working on that. Lighting fixtures are going up. If you've driven by the building in the last day or two, previously we had plywood as kind of a temporary door, both front and back. That has now been replaced with the permanent sliding doors. So those are in place on the front and rear entrance. And also, if you've driven by along Wabash, the glass canopy over the top of the main entrance is now installed. A lot of progress also in the parking garage. Light fixture installation is complete. The plans called for a traffic coating. It's kind of a waterproof membrane on the roof deck level of the garage. That has been completed. Painting is taking place in the stairwells, so the roof, doors, frames, and some exposed steel. is being painted. And really the last piece in the parking garage is the elevator installation, which they're probably in the 80, 85, 90% complete range. Hoping to wrap that up here in the next week or so. Looking ahead to next month, some upcoming work, operable partitions. So the movable walls that separate the ballroom, those arrive possibly today or tomorrow, with installation beginning next week. Interior glass and glazing, so inside the building there's a significant amount of glass walls that really form the front of a lot of the breakout rooms. Those delivered on Tuesday and have begun to be installed. Decorative handrail, that'll be taking place next month. So as you go up the monumental stair and then around the two clear story openings on the second floor, that stainless steel railing will begin to go up. Carpet, we will be starting carpet in the ballroom in the month of December. We'll also be completing the wood paneling, countertops and vanities, mostly in the restrooms. There's not a whole lot of casework on this project, but in the restrooms, the labs, and there's some phone charging stations out in the spine corridor. Those will arrive in December. Parking lot asphalt, we've got asphalt scheduled for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. So looking forward to getting that down. Kitchen equipment, I mentioned, arrives the first week of December. Toilet accessories will be going in. We're waiting on the last shipment of limestone, which is supposed to be here right around Thanksgiving. That will let us finish up the monumental sign along Wabash and on Cherry Street. Right now, there's just a steel pipe sticking up from the ground, but we've got some limestone work to do at the base of that. And also next month, we hope to have the connector weather tight. Possibly Friday, maybe Monday, we will be moving the windows from the Hilton Garden Inn out to the new connector. So we've got guys in the Hilton Garden Inn today building a temporary wall to seal that off, make it weather tight so we can remove those windows and move those out.
I've got a question about that connector. Will limestone be on the front of that as well, on your posts?
There's no limestone. There's a polished block, and then it's ephes, or like a plaster material they're installing it now. So if you drive by, it's kind of a gray color right now. That's that material.
Okay.
And then the parking garage for next month, our plan is to have it complete, or at least substantially complete. We're going to be waiting on some parking garage equipment and signage and things that are really outside of our scope, but with one caveat being the added cameras. Which just got added last month. That we're waiting for those to arrive, and then there's
Maybe Todd can
few weeks
update
worth
us
of
too in his, about the parking garage equipment when
Sure.
it'll be here.
some progress. So photo from the webcam, hard to see here, but really all the landscaping, irrigation is complete along Wabash. You can see the glass canopy kind of in the bottom right-hand portion of the screen. This is a shot looking from east to west down Wabash. You can see the landscaping, pavers, sidewalks, light poles, which were added as part of this project. They're installed. Nice shot of the front entrance. That limestone wall you see there will have lettering that says Terre Haute Convention Center. This is from the parking garage, looking down at the area between the Copper Bar and the Convention Center. This is the ceiling of the ballroom. Kind of below the ceiling, you can see the wood panels and acoustic panels installed. This is the pre-function hallway. Up top is the wood paneling. Down below is the fabric wrapped panels. This is the spine. You can see the wood paneling on the left. And the center of it, where there is no ceiling right now, that receives the wood paneling too and kind of runs across the ceiling and then down the wall. It'll be a neat feature to that area. This is the kitchen. So the epoxy floor is installed. If you look to the end of that, that's the freezer and cooler. And then FRP, which is a fiberglass panel, is installed on all the walls. Which, just a side note, we've talked a lot about material availability, and we had a heck of a time finding the adhesive for those FRP panels. We had ordered it a few times. Both times, yeah, it'll be here in 2 or 3 weeks. Both times failed to show up. We were getting a little bit behind the 8 ball as far as when that work needed to take place, and we started calling Louisville, Chicago, St. Louis. Ended up finding a supplier that had like 20 buckets of it, which is what we needed in Fort Wayne, and put a guy in a truck, drove him up that day, and got the material. So we've talked a lot about that, but those are some of the hoops you've got to jump through today to find the materials you need. This is a look at the restroom, so you can see the toilet partitions are installed. This is the terrazzo floor. Keep in mind this is in progress. Once it's done, it'll have a high gloss sheen to it, but this is kind of just after the first grinding of that floor. This is looking towards Wabash Avenue from inside the building. You can see the sliding glass doors installed. This is the glass canopy outside the main entrance. This is a look in the area between the convention center and the Copper Bar. Really a neat area, and yet to be installed are some overhead lights that hang from cables, which I think will really add to the ambiance of that area. This is looking down on the west side of the parking garage. You can see some limestone benches in the foreground and then some preparation for asphalt. This is the covered area between the convention center and the parking garage. Those recesses will receive brick pavers like we have along Wabash. So that area will receive the pavers. This is the traffic coating I had mentioned up on the roof deck of the parking garage being installed. And this is a look at the connector. So John, you asked about the exterior material. That is the EFIS product, which really matches the vertical column wraps on Hilton Garden Inn. That's the same type of material. Okay. So we're kind of matching that look. But then all of those openings, those are the window openings we're pulling from the Hilton Garden Inn, and we'll use those on the outside. Correct. Yep. Saving money. Mm-hmm. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have two. I always have questions, so.
By the way.
The monumental sign, will weather affect that to where you have to push that back to spring, do you think, or?
No.
Okay.
If the weather just, turned frigid, we'd build a tent around it, heat it, and get that installed.
And then this may be a question for Todd, but the digital sign, will that go up before winter per se, or would that probably be an install in the spring?
I'd defer to Todd
Okay.
on that one.
And then second, this may have nothing to do with you as well, Brian, but I know Tim wants to do a update to the Hilton, the exterior. Have you heard anything, or will that be finished by the time the convention center opens? So they both look great together, or will construction be going on the Hilton?
We've talked to the Hilton Garden Inn, not necessarily about the outside of the building. My understanding is they're doing an interior refresh of some of the finishes.
Okay.
And we've coordinated we basically connected their architect with your architect. That way they can kind of align the finishes and make sure, you know, they work well together and understand kind of where they're starting or stopping and vice versa. So there's been coordination taking place between those two projects, if you will.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Brian, you mentioned the lights between the Copper Bar and the east side of the convention center. Back on the north side, last meeting, or sometime we were talking, you had told somebody to check those lights in front of the state office building if they were working or not working.
Yeah, so there's 5 existing light poles around the state office building. 3 of them are on the east elevation of the building that face the parking garage. All 3 of those work. However, they really provide no significant light to the area.
I come by there 7:30, 8 o'clock the other night, and
They weren't on. It could be they could be on a timer rather than like a seeing eye that senses the amount of light.
do those belong to the
Well,
city?
are those the decorative black ones, just like we have everywhere else?
No. These
Okay.
are, I don't believe these are city lights. If they are drastically different in appearance than
Okay,
anything else that's downtown.
well, we'll look at that. Because if they're not like those, then, yeah, they would be something different, but that doesn't mean we still can't figure out what's going on with it. And we're going to be upgrading the lighting downtown to new LED lights that are brighter anyway for all of them, so we just need to look at that little piece.
I think those 3 would be a good candidate for replacement, because
Okay.
I think some additional light in that area could be beneficial. And then, John, there's 2 lights. It would be on the south side of the state office building. They're really light the area between the convention center and the state office building. And those are currently not functioning. We've had some conversations with the property manager, Pam Pell, and I think she's looking into seeing whether that's a bulb issue or what, but we're in the process of trying to figure that out.
Are those the ones that we put on?
No, those are existing, and they're really, I don't think I have a picture of it. They're kind of up tight to the state office building on the south side of it, along that sidewalk. But ideally, those would could start functioning, because that would add some needed light kind of to that area, you know, on the back side of the convention center, so.
Well, didn't we talk about 3 lights either on the convention center or on the west side of the parking garage?
Yeah, so that's still kind of in the works. We haven't seen any design info, but what I've gathered is the designers are looking to add, I think, possibly 5 light fixtures that would attach to the parking garage and shine down on, really shine down on that area where the benches are. Because right now, there's no lighting there, and that's really kind of a pedestrian walkway, pedestrian plaza.
That was my original concern. Was that
You can barely see it, Mayor, but there's 3.
Yeah. They are different.
There's one there, there's one there, got this kind of round, low.
Yeah, those are not the traditional ones that we have downtown. So
Honestly, they don't provide much light.
I've got a question for our legal counsel here. So we don't have any right-of-way, the city doesn't anymore in that area, correct? I mean, the plan changed from the original plan. That was going to be a turnaround when that was going to be a hotel. So that's all either, I would assume, half owned by, you're not on the air. I'm assuming when we vacated the street, that half of that goes to the west and half of it goes to the CIB on the east. Is that correct?
That is
There's no
correct.
right-of-way there.
And this is the area that we have an outstanding, excuse me, easement issue on that we've got to clean up, so we can add that to the to the possible list there as well.
So the final easement then, Brian, would be no city right-of-way in there, correct?
No, it'd be ingress and egress.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no right-of-way, but there'd be right to enter
Okay.
and exit that
So,
area.
All right. That
So,
answers
and then
my
we
question.
can add to the list, the operator of the state office building has been very difficult to get a hold of in recent months, so we have not been able to resolve that issue. Hopefully, we will be able to.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Brian, I have one more question about the asphalt. It looks like your area back there is not quite ready for asphalt, so will that happen later this month, 1st of December, or will that happen next year?
Tuesday, Wednesday of next week.
Really?
That's the plan.
Awesome.
Yep.
Except the alley, probably.
We're going to work with the city on that and make sure we're not,
We should be there Mondays. I hope you
yeah,
got my
I
message.
saw that. I
Yep.
appreciate
Yep,
expediting that. There's a sewer issue in that alley. Looks like a portion of it, might have collapsed or something. So before we pave it, I talked to the mayor and they're going to make that repair so we're not tearing up freshly laid asphalt. We'll make sure that that happens, even if we have to come back and, pick up an area they're still working in. We'll make sure that happens.
And they'll still be pumping out asphalt that late?
yeah,
Yeah.
we're doing something for December, so we're okay. Couple more weeks.
Anyone have any questions? Ladies? Dave? Thank you, Brian.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, update on the convention center management with Spectra Venue Management and Tennille. Morning, Tennille. You have an introduction.
Good morning. I
Good.
do. So I want to introduce you to Martell Lewis. She is our new Director of Finance. Very happy to have an accounting person on board. Yeah. So her first day was November 1st, and yeah, I don't know if you want to give them a little update on some of your background.
Oh, sure. I'm a graduate of ISU. I went to Terre Haute North, and then I went away for a short time, long time. But I'm back now, and anxious to be here. I've worked in hospitality, defense contractors, healthcare, so I've had a full gamut of, financials and analysis of those. So just very excited to get started.
Did I understand that you worked for ISU as well when you came back, maybe?
I did not, no.
Oh,
No.
okay.
I worked for a defense contractor and then at Anthem for a short time in Indy.
Okay.
Nice to have you.
Welcome, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have filled that position. We recently have filled our Director of Sales and Marketing. So that position was offered to Pam Chamberlain, coming to us from ISU. She's been with ISU for a long time and books several thousand events a year all over campus. And she recently just got her master's in leadership from St. Mary's of the Woods. So I think she's going to be a really great asset to our team. Currently, we still have our Director of Food and Beverage position open. I'm in the process of interviewing for that still. I'm down to my final 2 candidates. So just really going through and trying to be thorough and figuring out which will be the strongest person for the facility. We have a chef position open. So once we have our food and beverage person hired, we plan to fill the chef position. I really want that person involved in the selection of our executive chef, as that person will report to our food and beverage director. And then we also have an event manager position posted as well. Both of these positions, the chef and our event manager, I have slated to start December or January, just kind of depending on who we have. If we have someone that comes up that we really just need to get them on board, or like with an event manager, if we have a small amount of events where we don't need one quite so soon, we'll kind of push it out a little bit. We've slated to have 2 event managers when the building opens, but we'll start with 1 and look at our event load, and at what point it dictates having to, we'll bring on the second person. So then we'll have one started that can help train the second person and start really digging into putting events together. We've slated for our public grand opening to be April 9th, which is a Saturday. Looking at operations, we've been looking at asset management systems and what will work for the facility. So once we're in the building, everything, basically what we do is everything in the building will be cataloged. When it comes to any equipment that is owned by the CIB, computers, everything gets tagged and logged, down to the HVAC systems, anything that has a mechanical function. We put together all of those, that asset program, a maintenance schedule, and all of that is tracked, so that way we make sure we're taking care of all the valves, any seals, things like that on a regular schedule. So we're looking at what program will work best for our facility here. We are in the process of setting up national accounts with suppliers that we have through our corporate office, such as Guy Brown, U.S. Foods, Global Industrial, Georgia Pacific. A lot of these companies, they're used by all of our facilities, so we typically get discounts. So we'll look at those to see what discounts we get, and then we'll still shop prices when we're ordering, supplies and products to make sure that we're getting the best prices. And our Director of Operations is proactively looking at putting together a receiving plan. So once we do move into the building, how are we receiving everything that's coming in? We want to make sure that we're very thorough. There's a lot of stuff that will be coming in. A lot of stuff has to get unboxed, making sure that we go through a thorough inventory count so that we know we're getting what was ordered. Anything that's damaged, we know how to get it back so that we can get replacements. So we're trying to work through what those plans will be. On the marketing side, we're getting ready to start placing a lot of advertising. We'll be looking at putting ads in the Tribune, potentially putting a flyer in one of the Wednesday or Saturday papers so that we can reach the masses about booking events at the convention center. We really want folks to look at, what events do you attend? How can you bring those home? Got some from Tammy this morning, so that's a great start. We'll be placing advertising in Midwest magazines, which is a meeting planner magazine throughout the Midwest that a lot of planners will look at, hopefully see our ads and be able to reach out to us. We'll be in their buyer's guide and their quarterly publications. Dave let me know that the CVB has a billboard just outside Indianapolis that he's going to let us put an ad on that. So that would be great to hit that Indianapolis traffic, and get a message to them like, let's get out of the city. Let's come to Terre Haute. Our C-Event listing is now active, which is a third-party meeting planner sourcing site. So we have that up and running. We still have, once we get real pictures to put in it, we'll keep loading that, but we'll start receiving leads through C-Event, which is used by probably 75% of the major third-party meeting planners. We'll also do a retargeting campaign through C-Event, so any meeting planner that's going on to C-Event and looking for facilities in the Midwest that are a similar market to ours, we can choose, if I want to find folks that are looking at Muncie, Indiana, we can target those planners that are going to Muncie, Indiana on there, and then we can start serving them ads. So we'll start doing some retargeting campaigns through C-Event as well. On the sales front, our sales manager has conducted about a dozen hard hat tours in the last month, which is really good. Getting a lot of groups in, taking them through, and all of these tours we are working on actual business. So it's not just someone that's curious about what does the facility look like. It's qualified business that they host events, and we're working on proposals for them. He's also making daily prospecting calls, and those are to some local business, a lot of regional associations, state associations, just looking at things online, giving them a call, seeing what we can do so we can start to fill the funnel. We're also reaching out to a lot of the college football teams. We've learned that a lot of those folks stay in Bloomington or Evansville because they travel with 100 to 150 people. They need meetings, they need hotels, meeting space, and they eat a lot of food. So we want them here because we can accommodate all of it. So we've got a good pull to now get some of that college football. They're coming here anyway, so we might as well capture all of it. As far as booked business, we have indefinite business. We have 2 definite contracts right now. We have 2 contracts that we've recently sent out, so we've got 2 more that will hopefully come back soon. In tentative business for 2022, we have 11 groups that we're working with in tentative business, and then 2023, we have 4 groups. So all of our business that we have in the funnel right now totals about $178,000, and it's close to about 1,500 room nights. Any questions?
Board, as you can see, she's been quite busy since last time we talked to her. And very frequently, I get a call at 10:30, or not a call, but a text saying, look this over, will you, and see if it looks okay? And that's fine. That's fine.
I have a couple compliments and questions.
Right ahead.
Tennille, I want to thank you for your inclusivity to Terre Haute and your new hires. I think you're pretty well equal on men and women, on the people you've hired and Terre Haute people, which is fantastic. So
Yeah.
I think that's great. Can you kind of speak on, and then I have one more thing, that the convention center is just more than a ballroom, and when you talk about meeting space, your meeting rooms, and how you think those will be moving forward?
Absolutely. So the ballroom, when we look at the ballroom as a whole, if we look at it from a banquet, like a local banquet perspective, I think we'll be able to seat about 700 folks comfortably. How many 700-person banquets are we going to have a year? It's not going to be that many, you know, when you look at how many organizations do that. Our goal is to get conferences that are here for multiple days. So I feel like our sweet spot is going to be between 300 and 500 people, because we need to use part of that ballroom as breakout space. Because when you have a larger conference, they need breakout rooms that are going to accommodate usually between 30 to 70 people. While our smaller space upstairs is only going to get, we've got 4 rooms that are going to get about 34 people, and then 2 rooms that we might be able to get about 60 to 70. We need those larger ballrooms downstairs too to be able to utilize for bigger space. So if we can divide the room in half, we can seat 300 people in just like the top part of the ballroom where the projector screens come down. If we can do general sessions with meal functions, then we get 3 more breakout rooms out of the larger space downstairs. Then we can add 8 more breakouts, you know, for anywhere from 12 to 60-something individuals. A lot of conferences, if they're traveling, they're going to do a general session, and often they're going to have between 7 and 10 breakouts. So we're really looking at how do we maximize the space. We're not going to get a lot of conferences that are going to have 700 people and have the breakout space unless we can find a date that works with us and the Holman Center where we can utilize both facilities. So we'll be limited on what those options are, but I really think just as from a convention center perspective, looking at groups that are 300 to 500 people with the breakout space, I think we can certainly accommodate.
And one of the biggest surprises I've seen, or people that have reached out to me, is weddings. I had somebody message me last night
We've had a
about
few
wanting to get
weddings.
married at the Indiana Theater and then come to the convention center for their reception, which I think is unique, something I didn't expect in
Mm-hmm.
downtown Terre Haute. But the photography is amazing in downtown Terre Haute with the old buildings. The Indiana Theater is amazing, and then
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the convention center for that space is.
Our second event that we booked was a New Year's Eve wedding, which I was surprised because I haven't done we don't usually get a lot of New Year's Eve requests unless it's a self-produced, you know, party that is taking place. And we've actually had 2 events that have wanted New Year's Eve, but our first, we had already sold it for a really nice wedding of about 300 to 350 people, which is a really good size. And we have one of our contracts we've issued is for another wedding. I believe we have 2 more weddings in the funnel. And we've not been pushing weddings, so it's not something that we were pushing, but we're certainly, you know, when someone knocks on the door, we're going to put a proposal together. Now, we're not going to book a wedding far out in the future, because when we start looking at, you know, past 12 to 18 months, that really needs to be focused on convention-type business, because the last thing you want to do is go back and try to move a piece of business, or you're going to kick yourself when you go, I booked something that really shouldn't have gone there when we've got something else that has a lot of room nights. It's taken up the full facility. It's here multiple days. So that's why we try to have our booking guidelines so that we know what business should fit in the right place at the right time.
Thank you. Thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah.
Tennille, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, but probably one of the most unique to date for me, and And I will tell you, my experience has been there's no logical progression of tourism in this town. It takes all forms. And so, whether you're going from a wedding, there may be a national boxing competition that takes place in there.
Really?
And so, yeah, I think you're going to see a little bit of everything in there.
Well, I think somebody reached out to you about wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah.
We just did a
So-
wrestling tour the other day.
Well, you also had, you called me the other day about a license collection.
Yes,
That needed a lot more space than what we had,
correct.
but.
Yes. Yeah, so as we prospect groups, so there's a group that I know of that I booked them in another venue long time ago, and I know that they travel around. I had Nate look up this group, and I couldn't remember how big they were because it had been so long, but I knew that they're willing to go a lot of places. And so he reached out to them. They needed 40,000 square feet of exhibit space. Well, our ballroom only offers 12,500, and then we have another couple thousand square feet, or maybe about 4,000 square feet in pre-function space, but I'm probably only going to be able to get, at most, 75 booths in the building, whereas they need twice that. So what we did was we sent that lead to the Holman Center, because if they could find a date that works for them, it still brings all of these folks, they're not from here. They're collectors, and they would have room nights. They would be bringing all of their product. So hopefully they could find a date that works for them, because it's still good for the community.
Brings them downtown.
It still brings them here. And that's what our goal is. We won't turn away business just because we don't have space. We will try to source it somewhere else. If we have a wedding that we're booked, we're gonna send them to the Ohio building or to the Red Barn. We're gonna try to find a place for them.
I did want to mention, right as I called the meeting to order, and it slipped my mind, but I wanted to congratulate the new casino operator here in town, Churchill Downs, and I know that I don't even have to say it with them when they get here. You will do that.
Absolutely.
But they have remarked to the mayor and to the commissioner how they want to collaborate with the convention center.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the casino will be a really great selling point for us. It'll be, when you have attendees that are coming from out of town, they want things to do. We want them to walk around downtown. We want them to eat down there, but they also want to have different experiences. And so it gives them an opportunity to go to another side of town, do some gambling, have some fun, and they'll have hotel rooms too, so they can always stay there and then come to the facility and then go back as well. So it will be a great selling point for us.
Good.
Absolutely. I'm happy we're getting a casino. It'll be really great.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
All right, an update on the Larry Bird Museum design and other items with the Nations Group.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of
Morning,
the board. Todd Schaefer of the Nations Group. We've had some progress on the Larry Bird Museum design since we last met. Their Hilferty's contract was fully executed, help with Brian Bosma on that. And we've had a kickoff meeting earlier this week with Hilferty Group and CSO. So we've talked about scope of work. CSO's fully up to speed on the current scope of the museum concept and design, and they're looking over what it's going to take to give us drawings in phases. First, underground conduit for wiring the data, and then a slab that'll accept the floor and the basketball area. So I should know by the middle of next week when CSO can have that first set of drawings. We'll let Garmong know when those are coming so they can price those. And then, because that's already in the museum budget, we can approve that and get that work started here, hopefully by the end of the year, while Hilferty and CSO is working on the next phase, which is getting the space ready to accept the museum space, or just get it prepared for finish. So that's moving very well on our front, finally. So it's been a little delay in the summer, but we got it on track, and it's confident that'll get that all ready to go.
I know Brian is very glad to hear that.
Yes, and we're glad to tell them that. So yeah, we want to get them completed in there while the trades are still on site, and keep the mess to a minimum. Going to move on to equipment purchases. Kitchen equipment, like Brian said, is coming in December. They're going to coordinate the delivery, accept that, and oversee the installation of that by the kitchen contractor in the kitchen. That'll be an ongoing process through December, probably into January. Garmong's trades will hook up the electric and the gas and all the utilities to that equipment, and it'll be functioning at the end of that installation. Parking equipment for the garage, we're having a meeting today at the job site office with Garmong, the parking contractor, and Spectra and ourselves to coordinate installation dates. Now we've talked about February. Mainly that's tied closely to phone and internet, when we'll have those utilities ready to hook to that equipment. So let's talk about that today, make sure we're all still on the same page for that and get those dates scheduled for the parking equipment installation. Signage, we had a meeting last week with the signage contractor to coordinate fabrication and installation in phases. We've talked to, you guys requested before about exterior signage installation sooner rather than later, and they are getting that materials together to make that happen. We'll have an updated schedule on that for our next meeting. But we know they're working on exterior signage, the digital boards, the signage on the front and on Wabash and Cherry Street, and then work toward the inside signage when the construction is complete. So we'll have a schedule update on that for you next month, but that's the schedule we're working toward. Let's see. Furniture, that last month we talked about the Mighty Light, maybe it was a month before, the Mighty Light purchases, which did save money on the project. And they are moving forward with getting that material together along with the rest of the furniture on the other contract. And we're going to coordinate that delivery with Garmong when they're ready to turn the building over and complete the construction. So we have, as of right now, there's no delays on material or equipment on anything on that. So we're heading in the right direction on that. And the last item we're going to work on with Spectra is the small wares, operations equipment, vacuums, silverware type things, just all the small things to make the place fully operable. And once they get their food and beverage director on board, we'll meet with them, go over that list, and start working through that, which is currently budgeted under operations equipment. Brian talked about the lighting on the garage, CSO. If you go by there at night, the lighting around the state office building is there. Last night, it was working on the south side. It lights up the parking area. There's enough light on the back because the convention center is a light-colored block. It kind of reflects enough. It seems adequate, but between the Holman Center and the garage, not the Holman Center, the state office building and the garage, that lighting does light up those parking stalls and maybe part of that access path. But on the parking garage side, it's a little darker than you'd want to see bringing guests from the campus or from the parking garage down that walkway. So CSO is looking at some lighting options to mount to the side of the building. So we went that route instead of poles, so we didn't hold Garmong up trying to get the site work done. So we should have that designed and priced up and presented to you at the next meeting. And that can be installed on the side of the garage at any time to here to the end of the project or even beyond. Conduit on the inside of the garage and mount the lights on the exterior. So that's something we're currently working on. I think the last change item we're seeing on the exterior of the project. And that's all I had. Is there any questions?
Todd, the people that are manufacturing the signs, I can't remember the contractor, are they also the ones that install the signs?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Where are they out of?
Indianapolis, I believe.
Indianapolis, right.
Indianapolis.
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
And they'll have it here maybe January?
We'll see what we can do. That'd be great. I think it depends on the digital signage too, so we're trying to get everything at once. If we can get some lettering up first, if that's available first, we'll hopefully we'll get that started in January, and I'll let you know next meeting, if not before.
Okay.
We're pushing them.
Do you have any update on the naming rights?
I do not. That would be Spectra.
The naming rights on the banking item, yeah, we received no responses for that. Then there was an informal inquiry with First Financial, who were the ones that we were hoping would be interested. The person who appeared to be most enthusiastic about that, Pat Ralston, retired. And the remainder were not that interested in it. And Tennille reached out. I reached out to the president. Tennille reached out to her contact, and they had allocated all of their sponsorship. First of all, I don't think they were thinking what we were thinking. as far as what a reasonable sponsorship might be, and they had allocated all of their sponsorship funds for next year already. We kind of let that one drop.
Well, hit them up for 23.
Well, I just wondered if, yeah, that would be included in some of the signage as it goes forward, if that project had to be lined out first.
Yeah, it would probably be in the electronic signage,
Okay.
which can be changed.
Any other questions? Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
All right, Jason Simler with Baker Tilly, give us an update on our budget, please. Good morning.
Morning. Just going over the schedule of comparison of budget to actual expenses you received yesterday. If you kind of compared this to what we presented last month, there's been a few adjustments made. I'll kind of go over a couple of those. We're on the first line, the design services. Got some current contract costs for that, so we increased the budget to $1,875,000. Still, based upon current costs there, you still see we're slightly under what's allocated for them. But that, by making the allocation, we just reduced the amount of contingencies that were unallocated. So the overall budget has not changed. You can still see the $34,891,153 there. Current contract costs, we did make the change to the furniture based on what the board approved last month. That savings of $39,000 on furniture expenses. We made an adjustment for that. There on column 4. So if you kind of look at column 5, the kind of the over-under column, you can see there toward the middle, there's about $149,990 of unaccounted expenses for the budget. Yeah, unallocated. And then below kind of the total project line, you can see the unbudgeted expenses, costs that you've approved, the additional FF&E, the parking garage cameras that Brian discussed, that $78,000 is the part of the guaranteed maximum price that he showed earlier. And then I added in the control sealer and the street lighting of $25,000 that the board approved last month. So cost paid to date, $25,507,000 of the project, and it leaves about $9.2 million of the total project cost yet to be incurred. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the schedule. And then the only other thing I wanted to bring up, I know I kind of give you a little update on the revenue projections. I like bringing this because it's always good news, but through November, you've collected $2,492,000 of food and beverage taxes. And compared that to the last 2 years, in 2019, you received $2,305,000. In 2020, you received $2,303,000. So for the first 11 months of this year, you've already surpassed what you collected in 12 months for 2019 and 2020.
Jason, I have a question. On, we are actual through October on this cash flow.
Yes.
Do you adjust the following months? For instance, when I'm looking at the hard construction costs, obviously is actual through October. And then do you go in and reallocate each month once you get those numbers in for the following months?
We do. We kind of leave, we make the adjustment in the last month. So we look at so for November, when we find out what's been approved for November, if more or less has been paid, we'll make that adjustment in, May of next year. So what we show for the remaining part of the year matches the schedule that we just went over is what is yet to be
Okay,
paid.
so with our timeline for construction moved up to March, it doesn't look like maybe that adjustment's been made. However, there's still museum expenses and other expenses in there, so I assume that's why everything's lumped into May.
Exactly. Yeah, just because the expenses might incur in March, they may not get paid until May. So I'm trying to reflect that actual cash flow for the board.
Okay, so as long as you're just making those adjustments
We are.
going
Yep.
forward.
Yep. And I'm also making the adjustments, the line items that we're showing at the bottom these unbudgeted expenses, like the cameras, I'm including those as well.
Thank you.
Mayor, you have anything?
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. Still under old business, an update on legal matters. Brian Bosma.
Thank you, President Marble and members of the board. Good to be with you in person today. A few things. First of all, your support team we're still supporting the project construction issues, but we're pivoting to operating issues as well. So we had a good conference, remote conference yesterday with Tennille Martell and Dave Anderson from Spectra, Jason, myself, John participated. We had asked the finance chair to participate, Chris, but he was tied up, and Todd was traveling. But we talked about the provisions of the pre-operating and management agreement, which you all approved quite some time ago now, refreshing our memory as to exactly how this is to operate. And we do have some of this preliminarily on paper, which I want to clean up and confirm, and then I'll share it with all the board members. So the program is that Spectra opens they open two accounts, excuse me, an operating account and an event account. The event account is really not an issue because it's where ticket proceeds go. If there's a ticketed event, like Jim Bramble's going to have a big stage show and they're selling tickets for it, ticketed events and ticket tax or any sales tax go into that separate account, which is a trust account, essentially, to protect the ticket payers or ticket buyers, the board, and Spectra. Let's just set that one aside. I'm not sure what the ticketed event issue will be, but in the future, perhaps it will be one. The second account, actually really the first account, and the most important one, is the operating account. And that is an account opened at a local financial institution by Spectra in the board's name and under the board's employer identification number. That is the account out of which all revenues will be deposited. The monthly operating expenses coming from the CIB will be deposited, and from where Spectra will pay all expenses, salaries, maintenance, event costs, all these things. So we had a discussion reviewing, again, the terms which were academic at the time and are now going to be functional, terms of the operating agreement on exactly how this will work. And we intend to present to the board next month, hopefully, if not certainly the month after, a short amendment to the operating agreement to clarify some items. The procedure will be on a monthly basis once operating starts, or I guess the month before operating starts. Spectra will present to the Finance Committee the projected monthly expenses for the following month. For the coming month. Once you get into those months, they will also give a report regarding either the prior month or the month before that. We're still talking about the ability to, with the date of the board meeting, et cetera, whether it can be done for the prior month or if it's 2 months late reporting. That report includes bank statements. It includes a balance sheet, income statement, some other specified items. One of the items that we're probably going to recommend to revise is it also requires a separate income statement, essentially, for every event. Well, we got to talking about somebody rents a boardroom for $400. The literal reading of that would be every event would have to be separately accounted for, which makes little sense. So we'll probably recommend a level at which, if the event is more than $20,000 or 15 or whatever we decide, that's when a separate report will have to happen. And that's so you can see if an event is actually making money or not. So we'll address that. One of the issues we discussed yesterday is an appropriate balance in that operating account, which will be the CIB's money, accessed by Spectra and operated by Spectra. But there has to be a balance in there as well, so that you're not just funding next month's exact expenses. We discussed that, and we're someplace between 2 months and 3 months of operating expenses. That means someplace between $500,000 and $750,000. The upper end of that seemed like a lot to me. So we'll continue our discussions and bring to the board a proposal. I suspect it'll be a dollar figure rather than a monthly income or monthly expense estimates, and something along the lines of $650,000 or something. That will be a transfer that will happen from the CIB, from the CIB's funds into the operating account. And we'll talk about timing on that too as well, Tennille, when you have to start working that. We also were aware, and Jason has accounted for the fact that we did not, the CIB, Spectra has not billed and the CIB has not been paying the pre-operating expenses on a monthly basis as was anticipated by the agreement. We've worked that out, and Jason has in the income statement here, and he can point out exactly where it is, the true-up for those expenses that have been accounted for by Spectra. So that will also be reimbursed to Spectra. I don't know about the timing on that, guys, if that's next month or... Okay. One thing we talked about, Mr. Auditor, is, and Tammy, is coordinating a deadline for, on a monthly basis, when Spectra has to have things to you so that they can be on the Finance Committee's agenda. And then it will be up to you all what happens after the Finance Committee approves that monthly. Options, board doesn't worry about it. Second option, it then comes to the board for approval and review with, on the same day as it's reviewed by the Finance Committee, for your review and approval. Entirely up to you all. But we will put that likely in an amendment as well, in addition to the amount of the balance that the CIB agrees to maintain in the operating account. Okay, so questions about that? Yes.
I do. Will the museum have a separate account as well, or will that be included as well?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, and we've not talked about that. Has been some discussion, although no action to my knowledge, about a separate foundation operating the museum. There's been no action taken in that regard, so that's a good question, and we'll have to address it. And I'm not really sure that there's separate accounting of that facility. I mean, it's not going to have a separate operating account. It's not going to have separate maintenance expenses, I presume. I presume those are all just part of the convention center.
It would have some expenses because there's no restroom design on, say, a weekend or days that facility could be closed. If the museum has regular hours, they're open, we still have to allow folks to use the restroom in public spaces. So which means we still will have to have house and some things.
Right. It seems to me that we'll have to have that discussion. We probably better clarify that in an amendment as well. It would seem to me that it would fall under Spectra's. I mean, you don't have a separate housekeeping staff to, sweep the carpet in there, or.
It's our operations staff that's at table house for all of their work.
Okay, then how would the expenses be separate, Neil? Maybe I didn't understand what you were saying.
So normally, like, let's say it's a weekend.
Hey, Tennille, can you come to the microphone?
Say, Convention Center will have regular operating hours, 8 to 5 business hours. If we don't have events that are taking place in the evening, normally most of our staff goes home, or we have staff that's there that needs to change rooms, do overnight activities and such. On the weekends, if we don't have any events that are scheduled, we would have the facility shut down, powered down. But if the museum is open, we still would have to have folks that are in the building, whether we had a job for them to do or not. If they, if they're not in need of setting tables and that, we still have to have someone that's taking care of restrooms for the public if they're coming and going from the museum, because they have to use the restrooms inside the facility.
Gotcha.
So, which normally we wouldn't schedule staff because we would try to keep everything, our labor down and only have staff there when we absolutely need to have them there. So that's really where I think most of the expenses will come. It is on the weekends when we might not have something scheduled.
Tanil, you will also be scheduling some events just in the museum.
Ideally, yes. So if we have, and the way that we do it, so if it's a weekend and we have someone who, let's say it's after hours on a weekend and it's 60 folks who want to do a reception on the weekend, we really have to look at what is the cost to do that, because we don't want to open up the entire building, fully staff it for 50, 60 folks. I mean, we have to look at the financial aspects. Does it make sense to do that? But if we have events taking place and we're just carrying something over a little longer, then absolutely we want to use that space for receptions, weekday receptions and such when we already have business going on during the day. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Just trying to figure out how,
yeah,
I guess, where it's going to fall under.
I guess that's a good question, and I guess we should just have a brief discussion about accounting, separate accounting. So, for instance, if you have to have a maintenance person there, that would just be part of your general operating,
Yeah.
correct? And would be included in your anticipated
Correct.
or after reported expenditures that would be funded by the.
And what we do is we do labor allocations. So when we have, let's say we have 3 different events taking place during a week, our operations will go, okay, I've got these 3 employees who are setting a room for this, so they're allocating that labor to that event. We might have one person that's on another event, they're allocating that labor. So we can look and see at the end of the month, when it comes to all these events, we spent X amount in labor on event A. Event B was really little. We only had one person. It was X amount. But if we didn't have anyone, if the museum was just open all on its own, but we had to allocate some labor to that, we would identify that that labor was allocated to the museum. So we would know at the end of the month what labor went where.
So the board would be able to see that.
Yes.
That, yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
So it is sort of accounted for separately,
Correct.
but it's included all in the monthly.
Yes.
Okay. I guess if, I'm not sure who was advocating the nonprofit 501c3, if that's going to start, it probably ought to start, I mean, we've got a year before the museum opens, it sounds like-ish, but we probably better make some decisions. You probably better make some decisions on that. I have one other thing, but I don't think I need you to have to stand there the whole time, Tanil, thanks. But you definitely want to hear this. The other item that we reiterated in an email yesterday that went out is the management agreement did call for Spectra to make a capital contribution to several capital contributions to the board to be used at the board's discretion. The first of those is to happen within 30 days of the stub year, which sounds like it's going to commence in April or March. And that's $275,000 will be paid by Spectra to the board. Now, we can offset something else if you choose to do that, but those funds will be coming in. The second installment of that is within 30 days of the first full operating year, which will be 2023, and that's $175,000. So those funds will be coming your way and are utilized at the board's discretion. There's some down the line too. There's $150,000 in the 6th operating year, and then if you renew the contract with Spectra, then there's an extra $300,000 that comes 10 years down the line. The second contribution that they agreed to in our discussions is a $10,000 marketing contribution every year to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. That does not start next year, the stub year. That starts in the first full operating year. So those funds will be coming your way, the 275 in particular. So that leads me to the next item. I didn't say this in the agenda revisions because I want you all to have your option on this. As part of the discussion and the motion, which I actually was traveling, but I was not driving, so I watched the meeting last month that Mr. Kowalski attended. So at the end of the meeting, you all passed a motion for all change orders that are being paid out of food and beverage tax to not go through the normal process, which is approval by the executive committee if it's within the budget, the projected budget, but to come to the board. So that resulted in me directing Nations Group that before you send another change order in, we want you to tell us there's either a project budget amount that is allocated to, or another funding source. So the two change orders that you received in Resolution 2021-14, one is for a glass door in the office area, Spectra's office area. The second is the addition of paneling at the south entrance. Is that correct, or is it the north entrance? I'm sorry, the north entrance, which is bare, and Spectra has said these are appropriate and good improvements. They actually have a much longer list that they would like, but these were the two that they thought were important. There's one more set that will come next week. So this,
She passed out a,
oh, great, thank you. So that was a long way of saying, after yesterday's discussion and confirmation with Nations Group and Jason today, those change orders are within the $149,992 that can be paid from that unallocated project fund. And moreover, in light of the fact that you're going to be receiving $275,000 in April or May of next year, in addition to your normal food and beverage. So it's up to you all, which is why I didn't say remove it from the agenda. If you want to pay those change orders from food and beverage, which will require the entire board's approval, or if you want to take them out of the $149,992 unallocated project budget.
My comment for that is, so the food and beverage tax has specific uses. It can only be used for, obviously, specific items. So if these change orders, these construction change orders fall within that, I would recommend then food and beverage money be used for that. If the money coming from Spectra has no specific use, then I'd say you keep that separate. If it needs to be used for operating, landscaping, signage, or something outside of the uses of the food and beverage tax, is my only recommendation.
Yeah, so food and beverage you're absolutely correct. It can only be used for very limited. The Vigo County food and beverage tax has its own specified statute. It can be used for the construction, financing, and maintenance of a convention center constructed after July of 2018, check. It can be used for wayfinding signage, which you approved last month, check. It can be used for certain art projects, and that's it. And to pay bonds for the foregoing items. So you're absolutely correct. So that's the report, and it'll be up to you all if you want to take the recommendation to use food and beverage under new business or not.
so are you saying, Terry, that you think these change orders then should be paid out of food and beverage?
I do.
Okay.
I do, but I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I just, considering the limited uses of the funds, if it falls within that use, then I feel that that's where it needs to come from.
Okay.
I have a question before we get to that. Brian, for you, so Tammy does a lot for the Capital Improvement Board. Right now she's done with the claims that go to the auditor, then back to her, and then she gives it to the Finance Board. Post-construction and after opening, will that continue, or will their claims go straight to the auditor's office? They give it to the finance team and we go? Or will Tammy still be an integral part of all this operation?
That is entirely up to you all.
Okay.
So that's internal to you, whatever procedure you want to institute for that is best. Actually, the agreement is silent. We felt it was appropriate to recommend that it comes to the Finance Committee first for review, because somebody's going to have to spend some time
Right.
with the reports once they start coming in. And then it would seem to me to make sense for the Finance Committee to recommend approval by the whole board, but again, entirely up to you. If you all don't, you're going to move pretty quickly here from a board that's in charge of constructing a project to a board that's in charge of operating a project, right? So the time that we all spend on construction updates and project construction budget updates, those things will be over, hopefully. There may be some mop-up here and there for several months, but you all will be moving as a board to operating a capital improvement rather than constructing it. So
What does Jim feel?
that's a great question. That's a dead one.
I'm assuming that we'll essentially be writing one check a month or a quarter or whenever to reimburse that Spectra account for multiple transactions. So what's going to happen is
All the checks will be written by them. One check will be written by you.
similarly to what is happening with Garmong now. Garmong, we're reimbursing Garmong for multiple vendors that are constructing this project. We're sending Garmong one check for a couple $1 million worth of transactions. And this won't be, I don't think it'll be,
There'll be one difference to that is you pay Garmong in arrears after work has been done, performed, or paid for. Here it is. This will be in advance, an estimate within the approved budget of the coming month's expenditures, and then a report that is either 1 or 2 months delayed, depending on timing, every month. So,
All right, so my question then is, it'll go to the Finance Committee,
Yeah, that's my, like, if somebody doesn't get paid right now, their first phone call is to Tammy, and she has to deal with it. Whereas I think it should come to the Finance Committee, either the chair, me, or whoever's elected next year, and they should deal with it. Tammy has a lot of responsibility already, not saying that she's not willing to do it, but she's not compensated for it. And that becomes really hairy. And, either there's going to be a point person on the board, or we're going to find a way to assist her in getting these things accomplished, moving into 22 and 23. Things like that.
All right. So then I guess my question, just for more clarification, is then it would go to the Finance Committee that meets at 8:30 before we meet. You would approve it, bring it to the board, we
Exactly.
approve it, and then it gets sent to be paid.
Right.
Does that sound right? So Tammy doesn't necessarily have to do anything. It could go right to Jim at that point.
yeah, as long as there's a contact person, I think
That's up to you, once again.
Tennille
that's
and
up to you guys
Martell
how you do it.
will, yeah.
I don't care, I want to understand the process, I guess. So, the Finance Committee would approve it.
Well, yeah, I just want to talk about it because, Tammy's been a part of this since 2016 and an integral part of all of it, and we appreciate her, but she also has work to do for the county as well. So, either I'd like to find a way, which, Tammy was fortunate and blessed to get a pay increase this year, but that was more of a pay increase for what she does for the county, not necessarily for the capital improvement board. So if there is a way, which I know, Brian, we've discussed this, either we offer something to Tammy, or we remove her and we put the responsibility on the board, solely on the board.
Yeah, and the discussion on that resulted in our opinion that, yes, the CIB can also pay her, but it has to be in the county's salary ordinance.
Exactly. Which, county government is very difficult, to say the least. And that, at this point, or at that point, as early on in my term as commissioner, I could not get done. So maybe that's something we can tackle again, but not only looking out for Tammy, but looking out for the commissioners and what she does for us daily, and then giving the responsibility to the capital improvement board and working directly with Tennille and Jim. And Karen does a great job as well to get those things done.
And I'll answer your question in advance. There's no other way to compensate a public employee legally except through the process of increasing the salary ordinance. CIB could easily chip in, but CIB can't just write Tammy a check. Verboten.
There's folks over there in the auditor's office that you guys don't see on a regular basis, Karen and others who taken on a lot of additional responsibilities while this project's been ongoing.
So just want to get that out in front of us for something to consider early next year on how we move forward with actual operations post-construction.
So you'll want to decide, I mean, we send our, I know Baker Tilly does too, we send our invoices to Tammy. And if there's a different contact person, you'll be the first to know. Yeah, so I think we're all more than willing to work through whomever. I would hesitate, Chris, to just put it on the commissioner
Yeah.
themselves, because I think you want an administrative person that's going to be responsible for that
Exactly,
and present it to you.
Yep, I understand. I just wanted to kind of get that discussion rolling before we get too far along.
So does that sound like the right process you want and that we can document is for Spectra's prospective next monthly goes to a designated person, along with the reports that won't be with the first request or the second request, they'll be with the third request, reports from the first month. That goes to the appointed person for review and approval or recommendation, I guess, by the Finance Committee, and then comes to the entire board for discussion and approval?
Yeah, I think
That's
so.
what I would prefer.
That
I
sound
think
like a
for- I
program?
think that's the
That happens
most,
in the same day.
yeah.
You know,
And it's the most transparent process
Yep.
for everybody to be involved, so.
I like that.
Sound-
I would, yeah, recommend along with that, a list of the job duties.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
obviously that can be carried on, so we know exactly what all those job duties are. I haven't seen a list of, I'm sure it's more than one person that's been affected.
All right.
So I can't create that, just,
I know you
I'm
can't,
looking this
but-
way and this
but-
way.
but there will need to
I
be a
know
list of
Karen
job
does,
duties with
They can figure that.
yeah, you all need to figure that out and a contact person.
I mean, it kind of relies on the commissioners in the salary ordinance and then working with the council on the job duties. I don't necessarily know if that's where this board wants to go with that, if Tammy wants to stay involved, or we remove her and put it on the finance committee. Not leaning either way.
So I think you need to make that decision. Tammy just needs to tell us,
Yeah.
you know, how she wants to do that. We'll make it work.
Yeah. Coming in the near future, the county's hired Baker Tilly to do a new survey and write new job descriptions and such for county employees, and I'm certain that folks that, well, the last round of job descriptions that were done for the county, the Capital Improvement Board didn't exist, so the responsibilities that people have taken on to administer this project aren't included, but they surely will be.
Yeah, so to
over
be
the
clear
next
to the
year.
board, not looking for any action today, just wanted to open up discussion on how we move forward with secretarial things in 2022.
We know that this has created, the Capital Improvement Board has created job activity for several people. Tammy in particular, Karen, who has to go back and type all the minutes, Becky, so, what do you want to do?
Nothing. I think
Okay.
that just, as we talk to Baker Tilly moving forward with doing a salary study for the county, I just want to make sure that either myself, which I don't think is a good way for me, or I don't think it's a good thing for me to do because I'm a county commissioner and I don't want to influence anything the wrong, or could be perceived the wrong way, but if people from the Capital Improvement Board could put in a good word or talk to Baker Tilly about the added job duties for Tammy, Jimmy, Karen, people in the auditor's office, we could go there and then, or remove them, not remove the auditor's office, of course, but put the responsibility on the finance committee.
All right, so item we'll think about.
Just one other legal update. Don't forget that in January, your meeting, you need to establish your meeting dates and for next year, and I presume you're going to leave them on the same third Wednesday. We'll put together a calendar for you. And then in your January meeting, you will elect the officers. It's the annual meeting, and then appoint committee chairs again also. So that's 2 meetings away. That mention it now so you can think about it. And that's it.
Right. Brian has prepared this resolution, 2021-14, for items that are to be paid for out of food and beverage. Has everyone had an opportunity to look that over and read it? We all satisfied with it?
I just have one question. Tennille explained the addition of the glass door. Could someone explain the additional pre-finished interior composite paneling on the north entry lobby? Just why it's being added? I just need an explanation.
I'd be glad to answer that if you don't want to make another trip. We have the parking garage which sits there on the north side. Probably 90% of people that are going to come into the convention center will be parking in the parking garage. When you entered those doors, it was just simply plain painted drywall. It looked like a gymnasium. You know, we've got
A very expensive
real nice
gymnasium.
looking convention center ballroom, and so we decided that we'd get some pricing to bring that wood wraparound on down there just to greet the people when they come in from the parking garage.
Okay, thank you.
Was that it?
So if there's no other discussion, Mr. Chairman, I would approve, or would ask for approval of Resolution 2021-14.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 2021-14. All those in favor signify, do we need a roll call?
You don't have to, since you're not meeting remotely, but you're certainly welcome to, whatever your normal custom is.
It makes it easier for our minutes if we do a roll call vote.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Conley,
Aye.
Ms. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Bennett,
Aye.
Ms. Marvel,
Aye.
Mr. Schweitzer,
Aye.
Mr. Witt.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can forewarn the board that there will be more, at least one more change order at Spectra's request as they're started to staff up and get into the break room. They're concerned about electrical overload. They don't want circuits flipping off when somebody's running a sweeper, and it appeared not to be handled appropriately for the break room, refrigerator, that kind of thing. Tennille, you want to talk about those? We just thought we'd give you a forewarning that you'll be seeing something like that next month.
So with the ability to add the door to the office, we now have we have access to that whole hallway. So we can create storage for all of our office supplies. The facility doesn't have a break room, so we're going to add a refrigerator in that space too, so that employees can bring their meals. We'll have a microwave. We need a coffee machine. There are various items that need to be plugged in. The addition of the workspaces that we're creating. So we'll have 3 additional computer spaces. So there's a little bit more power that's needed as we've gone through and reviewed like the power, and Garmong is going through and trying to figure out how we can add some more power and what that cost would be. So it's something that we've identified now that we can actually utilize that whole space, and trying to think through everything that we're going to need to be plugged in and all the circuits that are connected. If we have someone that's plugging in a vacuum outside in the hallway, it's like we don't want to end up popping breakers, especially when events are taking place, and so we want to make sure that we've got adequate power. So there may be a change order that's coming to add additional circuits.
Okay. Sounds good.
And then, Mr. President, you're likely to see a change order on the garage lighting also that was discussed earlier. Just trying to keep you informed in advance so you don't get stuff sprung on you a couple days before, to the extent we can.
All right, that wraps New business. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Are we skipping 5.6?
Yes, we are.
I have a comment, John, if you
Yes.
don't mind.
An update. I'm sorry, there wasn't an
Okay,
update.
all right,
I'm
I
sorry.
was just
Yeah.
making sure it just wasn't overlooked.
The mayor and I had the opportunity to sit through nearly 8 hours of the casino ordeal yesterday, and like John said, I wanted to congratulate Churchill on coming to Vigo County, and we accept them with open arms. We look forward to doing business with them as a CIB and as a community. I'd also like to express my sincere thanks for Greg Gibson, his wife Amy, and their 2 children for not only being with the CIB, Vigo County, and the city of Terre Haute since the inception of the convention center, but also for all the hard work and dedication they have done for making the casino even possible for Terre Haute and Vigo County. So the cataloging that you're speaking of, Ms. Conley, has been largely kind of put to the wayside because of Mr. Gibson's pursuit of what he had going on, and hopefully that will get much better. But I just wanted to thank him on behalf of myself, Vigo County, and the city of Terre Haute for all he's done for this community, and glad that he will continue to advocate for our community moving forward.
Thank you, Chris. Mayor, would you like to say anything?
You know, I guess I would just say a couple things. I really wasn't, the whole concept of having the CIB is really so important to the community, and it fits right into our community plan, what we're trying to do when we talk about the casino, all of that. And I would, echo Chris's comments about the contributions that Greg has made to our community, but as you can see what this has blossomed into, there is so much more opportunity even beyond where we're at today. And so I just appreciate the community support with what we're trying to do with the convention center. And then we need to be supportive of Churchill Downs coming here. Had a conversation with 2 of their team last night afterwards about convention space. I'm not concerned about that now. We've had several discussions about that. I think that'll be a great partnership. And just the conversation, Tennille, you were talking about with ISU, just all these players working together here is going to bode well for our community. And so, we keep hitting some really neat milestones and with more to come. And so I just really appreciate the work of the CIB specifically. But as we move forward working with Churchill Downs, it's going to be a huge addition to our community. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome, Mayor. Any board members have any further comment? Steve? Right, the next regular board meeting will be December the 15th, 2021, at the regular time, 9 a.m. We are adjourned.
Very good.